Minor in-house opposition, the Ugandan Parliament has swiftly passed a legislation with stricter penalties for people engaged in same-sex activities in the East African country. Now, after the House unanimously adopted the bill, the Speaker, Anita Among, stated that the House will not shy to restrict any rights to the extent of the House that recognizes, protects, and safeguards the sovereignty, morals, and the culture of this country. Journalist and editor Leila Bale joins us now from Hoima, Uganda. Good morning, Leila. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
We did speak about this a few weeks ago, but it's now come with some updates. So walk us through some of these new laws that have been passed and what the penalties are.
Thank you so much. The debate about the anti-homosexuality bill was held in Parliament yesterday until around 8 in the night, and the discussion was quite broad amongst the legislators and the Ugandans who were watching the debate live on various TV stations within the country. In the last minute within the debate was the introduction of death penalty for the offense of aggravated homosexuality. In Uganda, just like the speaker has been telling Ugandans as well as other legislators, homosexuality is something that people do not even want to speak about in public. But of course, we all knew that it was now a public secret that there were a few Ugandans who were engaging in the act, basically for money and all that. But with this bill now passed by the August House and only awaiting the president to assent to it, and it comes into an act of parliament, it means the stringent penalties that were put in place will start to bite those who are against or those who practice homosexuality within the country. Now, Ms. Robin Arakojo, who is the chairperson of the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, which considered the bill, said the changes in the penalties were made to harmonize them with the provisions within the Penal Code Act, because we now see that a person convicted of attempted aggravated homosexuality would face 14 years in prison, but now it has come to a last-minute introduction of the death penalty, and that was key. This is because there were reports of some Ugandans or people who are abroad paying some little money or some money to young girls and young boys in schools to practice homosexuality, especially those who are below the age of 16. And now this comes to bite such people who engage in such acts.
All right, just 6 days ago, President Yoweri Museveni, who has actually been the president of Uganda since 1986, did make a statement before the parliament just before these laws were indeed passed. And one of the statements I'd like to quote says, the homosexuals are deviations from normal. Why? Is it by nature or nurture? We need to answer these questions, he said. Now, I went ahead to say we need a medical opinion on that and promised to discuss thoroughly. And then he went ahead to make mention that anyone who engages in same-sex activity or who identifies as LGBTQ could face up to 10 years imprisonment. Do you have any update if all of these statements the president made 6 days ago prior to the laws being passed have been expunged or have actually been added into the laws that we are indeed seeing passed?
Yes, this is something that has remained into the bill that was tabled by legislator Asman Basariwa from the opposition JEMA party, and this still stands. The parliamentarians never even waited to bring in experts to explain what is the difference between the nature and nurture that the president was speaking about. But the penalties have remained. The only penalty that has changed is the penalty for the introduction of the death penalty for those who engage in the offense of aggravated homosexuality. And for we as Ugandans, yes, a biggest section of Ugandans are in support of this bill to come into force, because we've been seeing that our culture, our African tradition, our Ugandan tradition has been, that there has been an invasion of the Western culture within here, and many of the children have been really being recruited into acts of homosexuality. But now we hope that with the president's stance, it will remain, and the president will assent to this bill in the next few days or months to come.
Right, Leila, talk about rights groups, right? Are there any rights groups that, originally would be defending the LGBT community in Rwanda or Uganda, I beg your pardon? And also, is there any claims of influence from outside Uganda, to, of course, influence the LGBT community there?
Yes, the Human Rights Watch made submissions a few days ago to the Uganda's Parliamentary Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs in regard to the Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2022. And the officials from the Human Rights Watch said that some of the clauses or some of the penalties that are within the proposed anti-homosexuality bill should be scrapped off. They even made some recommendations. One of the key recommendations of the three they made was scrapping of the anti-homosexuality bill 2023. They said that this bill violates rights of freedom of expression, association, and liberty, especially when it comes to declaring of all same-sex conduct as non-consensual, then criminalizing same-sex marriage and make it an offense for a person to conduct a ceremony between persons of the same sex. For them, these violate the rights of freedom of expression, association, and liberty. Then they also looked at the rights, they said the bill is also against the right to equality and freedom of discrimination, inhuman and degrading treatment. For them, they say that the bill provides for discrimination against people on the basis of their sexual orientation by criminalizing consensual same-sex conduct between adults. So for Human Rights Watch is one of the groups that went to Parliament and made submissions and said, no, we are against this. The same happened to Fox Odoy, a member of Parliament, as well as his counterpart Kwizera, who submitted a minority report in this regard. They said most of these clauses and the penalties are within the Penal Code Act, and there is no reason as to why for them they would be in support of the Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2023. There are also some silent voices within the community, especially now that most people now, some even I would say they pretend to be in support, while others come out boldly to say no. But even other human rights activists within the country say some of these clauses, the bill was not actually needed to them. That is why they say it should be scrapped off.
All right. Thank you so much, Leila, for talking to us all the way from Uganda and giving us updates on the new bill or the laws that have been passed against the LGBTQ community there in Uganda.
You're welcome.